Nick Barnes finds lost girl in the snow. When he learned her story, he fell into tears. The storm. The blizzard descended upon the mountain pass like a white curtain being drawn across the world. Nick Barnes gripped the steering wheel of his pickup truck, squinting through the windshield as the wipers fought a losing battle against the accumulating snow. He shouldn't have taken this route. Everyone at the ranger station had warned him that the storm was coming in faster than predicted, but Nick had always been stubborn, always confident in his ability to handle whatever nature threw at him. After 15 years as a wilderness guide and search and rescue volunteer in the Colorado Rockies, Nick had seen his share of dangerous weather. At 42, his face bore the weathered lines of someone who had spent more time outdoors than in, and his calloused hands told stories of countless rescues and mountain climbs. But tonight, even his experience felt inadequate against the fury of the storm. The truck's headlights barely penetrated 10 feet ahead. The road, if it could still be called that, had disappeared beneath a blanket of white. Nick had been heading home after delivering emergency supplies to an isolated cabin community when the storm hit with unexpected ferocity. Now, he was crawling along at 15 miles per hour, following nothing but instinct and the vague sense of where the road should be. His phone had lost signal 20 minutes ago. The GPS was useless. The only sounds were the howling wind and the rhythmic thump of the wipers. Nick knew he should stop, wait it out, but stopping on this exposed stretch could mean getting buried. He needed to find shelter or push through to lower elevation. Then he saw it, just a flicker in his peripheral vision, a splash of color that didn't belong in this monochrome world of white and gray. Red, he thought. Something red. Nick hit the brakes gently, and the truck slid slightly before stopping. He leaned forward, wiping the fog from the inside of the windshield with his sleeve. There it was again, definitely red, and moving. His heart rate spiked. Nothing should be moving out here, not in this weather, not this far from any settlement. He shifted into park and grabbed his heavy-duty flashlight from the console. Years of training kicked in. Someone was out there, and whoever they were in serious trouble. Nick pulled his hood tight, wrapped his face in a thermal scarf, and pushed open the door. The wind immediately tried to rip it from his hand. The cold was like a physical blow, stealing his breath. He aimed the flashlight toward where he'd seen the red flash. The beam cut through the swirling snow, and for a moment, he thought he'd imagined it. Then the light caught it again, a small figure in a red jacket, stumbling through the snow about 50 yards from the road. The figure fell, struggled to rise, then fell again. "Hey!" Nick shouted, but the wind swallowed his voice. He pushed forward, each step sinking knee-deep into fresh powder. The cold bit through his layers within seconds. How long had this person been out here? When he reached the figure, his blood ran cold for a different reason. It was a child, a little girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, wearing nothing but that thin red jacket, jeans, and sneakers. No hat, no gloves. Her dark hair was crusted with ice, and her lips had taken on a dangerous blue tint. She looked up at him with glazed, unfocused eyes. "Mama," she whispered. "Have to find Mama." Nick didn't waste time with questions. Hypothermia was already setting in, had probably been setting in for a while. He scooped the girl into his arms, shocked by how light she was, how cold her small body felt even through his gloves. She didn't protest, didn't really seem to register what was happening. That was bad, very bad. He turned back toward his truck, the lights barely visible through the white chaos. Each step was a battle against the wind and the deepening snow. The girl's head lolled against his chest. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Stay awake. We're almost there." When he finally reached the truck, he yanked open the back door and laid her gently on the seat. He cranked the heat to maximum and grabbed the emergency blanket from his kit, wrapping it around her small frame. Her eyes were closing. "No, no, no," Nick said, patting her cheek gently. "Eyes open. What's your name?" "Emma," she breathed. "Cold. I know, Emma. I know you're cold. We're going to fix that. Can you tell me where your mama is?" "Car," she whispered. "Went down. Couldn't get out. Mama said run. Get help." Nick's stomach dropped. A car accident. Somewhere out there in this storm, there was a vehicle, possibly off the road, with Emma's mother trapped inside. He looked out at the blizzard, at the impossible visibility, at the deadly cold. Every instinct told him he needed to get this child to a hospital immediately. But he thought of a mother trapped in the cold, waiting for her daughter to bring help that might never come. Before we continue with Emma's rescue, if you're moved by this story of survival and courage, please subscribe to the channel. Stories like these need to be shared, and your subscription helps us bring more incredible, true tales to light. Nick made his decision in seconds. He climbed into the driver's seat and pulled out his emergency radio. The static was overwhelming, but he kept trying different channels until he caught a fragment of a voice. Dispatch. Roads closed. Emergency. He keyed the microphone. This is Nick Barnes, Search and Rescue Volunteer ID 347. I'm on Highway 14, approximately mile marker 28. I have a juvenile, approximately 7 years old, severe hypothermia. There's a vehicle off-road, unknown location, adult female trapped inside. Repeat, adult female trapped. Requesting immediate emergency response. Over. More static. Then, Barnes, copy roads impassable, morning, hold position. Negative, Nick said into the radio. Child's mother is exposed. Cannot wait until morning. I'm going to search. Vehicle is A. He looked back at Emma, whose eyes were half open. Emma, what kind of car? What color? Blue, she whispered. Blue car. We fell. Nick relayed the information. Blue vehicle, likely went off-road. Child indicates the vehicle fell, suggesting it went down an embankment. I'm going to do a search pattern. Over. He didn't wait for a response. He shifted the truck into drive and began moving slowly, scanning both sides of the road with his spotlight. Emma had said she ran to get help. Kids her age could maybe cover a quarter mile in good conditions, but in this storm, probably less. And she would have been following the road, or at least trying to. But which direction had she come from? Emma, he said, glancing back at her. When you were in the car with your mama, were you going up the mountain or down the mountain? She didn't respond. Her eyes had closed again. Nick reached back and shook her shoulder gently. Emma, stay awake. This is important. Up or down? Down, she murmured. Going down. To Grandma's. Birthday cake. Down the mountain. So they'd been heading the same direction he was. The accident was behind him. Nick carefully executed a three-point turn, the truck's wheels spinning before finding purchase. He headed back the way he'd come, the high-beam spotlight sweeping left and right. The terrain along this stretch was treacherous, steep drop-offs on the right side, rocky walls on the left. If a car had gone over the edge, it could have fallen hundreds of feet. The snow was covering everything, erasing any tracks or debris that might have marked an accident site. Minutes crawled by. 5, 10, 15. Nick's hands were cramping from gripping the wheels so tightly. He passed the spot where he'd found Emma, marked now only by his own rapidly disappearing footprints. How far had she walked? How long had she been out there? Then the spotlight caught something. A break in the guardrail. Fresh metal, bright and twisted where it should have been weathered and uniform. Nick stopped the truck and got out again, fighting the wind to the broken section of rail. He shone his light over the edge and felt his heart sink. The embankment dropped away steeply, maybe 50 feet, and at the bottom, barely visible through the snow and darkness, was the crumpled shape of a blue sedan. Found it, he shouted into the wind, knowing no one could hear him. He ran back to the truck, grabbed his climbing rope, carabiners, and the medical kit. He couldn't leave Emma alone in the truck, but he couldn't take her with him either. He made a quick assessment. The truck was warm, she was wrapped in blankets, and she was breathing steadily. It would have to be enough. He locked the doors and began his descent. The slope was steeper than it had looked from above. Nick anchored his rope to a sturdy tree and rappelled down, the beam of his headlamp bouncing wildly. Snow had drifted against the car, and one side was crushed where it had impacted a tree. The windows were shattered, and snow had blown inside. Hello, Nick called out. Emma's mom. Can you hear me? No response. He reached the car and peered inside. The driver's seat was empty. For a moment, panic seized him. Had the mother been thrown from the vehicle? Had Emma been confused, traumatized? Then he heard it. A weak voice from the back seat. Emma. Nick moved around and found her. A woman in her mid-30s, her leg trapped between the crushed door and the seat, blood on her forehead. She was shaking violently, her face pale as death. But she was alive. Emma's safe? Nick said quickly. She's in my truck, warm. I'm Nick. I'm going to get you out. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She made it. Oh God, she made it. I told her to run, but I didn't think. I was so scared. She's incredibly brave, Nick said. already assessing the situation. The door was crumpled against her leg. He couldn't pull her out without causing serious damage, and she'd already lost blood. He needed tools he didn't have. Strength the storm was sapping from him by the second. Nick worked fast, his fingers clumsy in the cold despite his gloves. He pulled out his multi-tool and began prying at the door frame, trying to create any amount of space. The metal groaned, but barely moved. "What's your name?" he asked the woman, keeping her talking. "Sarah," she managed through chattering teeth. "Sarah Parker. Is Emma really okay? Is she warm?" "She's getting there," Nick said. "She's wrapped up in the truck. She told me you were going to Grandma's for birthday cake." Sarah let out a sob that was half laugh. Her grandmother's 70th. Emma's been talking about it for weeks. "I should have waited until the storm passed. I should have." "Hey," Nick interrupted firmly. "Kids say should have, and if only all they want when they're grown. Right now, you told your daughter to get help, and she did. That's what counts." He wrenched harder on the door frame. It shifted slightly, and Sarah cried out in pain. Nick stopped immediately. I'm sorry. Your leg? It's broken," Sarah said. "I know it's broken, but you have to get me out. Emma needs me. She can't be alone." "She's not alone," Nick said. "I'm here, and I'm not leaving either of you." But privately, he was calculating odds that grew worse by the minute. He couldn't free Sarah without better equipment. The storm was intensifying. Even if he managed to extract her, climbing back up the embankment with an injured woman would be nearly impossible in these conditions. And Emma was up there, hypothermic, possibly getting worse. He pulled out his radio. Pure static. They were too deep in the ravine. He looked at Sarah's leg, at the twisted metal, at the blood seeping through her jeans. He thought about Emma's blue lips and glazed eyes. Sometimes in search and rescue, you made choices you hated. You couldn't save everyone. You had to prioritize. The greatest good for the greatest number. The person with the best chance of survival. Every protocol, every training session, every piece of wisdom from veteran rescuers said the same thing. Secure the child first. Get Emma to the hospital. Radio for a team once you reach lower elevation. Come back for Sarah with proper equipment and support. But Nick looked at Sarah's face, at the desperate hope in her eyes, at the mother who had sent her little girl out into a blizzard because it was the only chance, and he knew he couldn't leave her. He couldn't make Emma grow up knowing her mother had died alone in the snow while he drove away. "We're all getting out," Nick said. "Together." He climbed back up the rope, his muscles screaming, and returned to the truck. Emma was still curled under the blanket, but her color looked marginally better. "Emma," he said gently, "I found your mom. She's hurt, but she's alive. I need to get her out. Can you be brave for just a little bit longer?" Emma's eyes opened. "Mama, she's asking about you," Nick said. "She loves you so much, and she's so proud of you for getting help." He made a quick decision. He couldn't carry Sarah up, but maybe he could make her safe down there while he transported Emma to help, then came back. He grabbed every blanket he had, the emergency shelter tarp, chemical heat packs, and the first aid kit. He even took the seat's cushions. The descent was harder this time, laden with supplies and fighting exhaustion. But he made it back to the car. He got the heat packs activated and placed them against Sarah's torso and under her arms, not on her extremities where they might cause shock. He wrapped her in every blanket, creating a cocoon, and rigged the tarp to block the broken windows and keep the wind out. "This is going to keep you warm," he said. "I'm taking Emma down to the ranger station. It's maybe 40 minutes if I drive carefully. Then I'm coming back with a team. 2 hours, tops." Sarah grabbed his hand. "Thank you. Thank you for not leaving her out there. Thank you for—" She couldn't finish. "Save your strength," Nick said. "I'm coming back. I promise." He climbed up again, every muscle burning, and got into the truck. Emma was sitting up now, watching him with wide eyes. "Mama, she's going to be okay," Nick said, praying it was true. "But we need to get you to a doctor, and then I need to get proper help for her." "Okay." Emma nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. If this story is touching your heart, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps others discover these powerful true stories, and it lets me know you want more content like this. Nick drove with a focus he'd never achieved before. He couldn't go fast, the conditions wouldn't allow it, but he didn't stop, didn't hesitate, didn't let doubt creep in. Emma sat wrapped in the one remaining blanket, occasionally speaking. "Mama sang songs," she said at one point. "When we were in the car. Before I left. She sang so I wouldn't be scared. What did she sing? Nick asked, keeping her talking, keeping her alert. Itsy Bitsy Spider, Emma said. And You Are My Sunshine. Those are good songs, Nick said. His eyes stung, but he blinked it away. Your mama loves you very much. I know, Emma said softly. That's why she told me to go. She said I was brave enough. 40 minutes felt like 40 hours. But finally, blessedly, the ranger station's lights appeared through the thinning snow. Nick pulled up to the emergency entrance and carried Emma inside. The rangers on duty jumped into action. Blankets, warm fluids, a call to medevac, though the helicopters were grounded. An ambulance would have to come from the hospital 20 miles down the mountain, but at least the roads at this elevation were more passable. There's a woman, Nick said urgently to Sam Rodriguez, the head ranger. Sarah Parker, trapped in a vehicle off Highway 14, mile marker 27, approximately 50 feet down the embankment on the west side. Broken leg, possible internal injuries, exposure. I've got her stabilized as best I could, but she needs extraction now. Sam was already coordinating on the radio. I'm putting together a team. Give us 20 minutes. I'm going back with you, Nick said. Nick, you're exhausted. I promised her, Nick said. I'm going. The rescue team assembled fast. Sam, 2 other rangers, and a paramedic. They had the hydraulic spreaders, the proper medical equipment, the expertise. Nick rode in the lead vehicle, directing them to the brake in the guardrail. The extraction took an hour. In that time, as they worked to free Sarah, as the paramedic stabilized her and administered 4 fluids, Sarah told them her story. And it was the story that broke Nick. Sarah Parker was a single mother. Emma's father had died in a military training accident when Emma was 2. Sarah had been working 2 jobs to make ends meet, struggling with medical bills from Emma's asthma treatments. She had no family nearby. Her mother, Emma's grandmother, lived 4 hours away. The trip they were making wasn't for a birthday party. I lied to Emma, Sarah said, her voice weak as the paramedic worked on her leg. There's no birthday party. My mother doesn't even know we're coming. Nick felt his chest tighten. Then why? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I was evicted 3 days ago. We've been sleeping in the car. I've been parking in different places each night, trying to keep Emma from understanding what was happening. She thought it was an adventure. I told her we were on a road trip. Nick's throat constricted. I was driving to my mother's, Sarah continued, to beg her to take us in, even though we've been estranged for years. Even though she told me I was ruining my life when I got pregnant. I had no other choice, no other place to go. And I was so scared of what would happen if I arrived with Emma, if my mother turned us away. And the storm hit, Sam said quietly. I was distracted, Sarah said, thinking about everything. I took that curve too fast, hit ice. We went through the rail. When we landed, my leg was trapped, and Emma was crying. I knew no one was coming. No one knew where we were. And the cold. She sobbed. I sent my baby girl out into a blizzard. What kind of mother does that? I told her to follow the road, to find help, but I knew she probably wouldn't make it. I knew I was probably sending her to die, but keeping her in the car with me was definitely going to kill her. So I made her go, and I sang songs to make her brave, and I told her it was an adventure, and I watched her walk away into the snow. Nick had to turn away. His eyes were burning, his vision blurring. He thought about Emma in her thin red jacket, stumbling through knee-deep snow, terrified but trusting her mother. He thought about Sarah, trapped and bleeding, listening to the wind and wondering if she'd just killed her own child. He thought about how close it had all come to ending in tragedy. She made it, Nick said hoarsely. Sarah, she made it. She's safe. And you're going to be okay. Because of you, Sarah whispered. If you hadn't been on that road, if you hadn't seen her red jacket, if you hadn't searched for me. If. Nick had spent 15 years in search and rescue, and he'd learned that the ifs could haunt you forever. The people you didn't find in time. The calls that came too late. The minutes that made the difference. But tonight, the ifs had gone a different way. They got Sarah up the embankment on a stretcher. The ambulance was waiting. Both Sarah and Emma were transported to the hospital, where Emma was treated for mild hypothermia and released the next day. Sarah underwent surgery on her leg and spent a week in the hospital. Please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on this story. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment where someone's courage made all the difference? I read every comment, and your stories matter. Nick visited them 3 days later. Emma was coloring at a small table in Sarah's hospital room when he walked in. She looked up and smiled. A genuine, bright smile that made her whole face light up. "Nick," she said, running to him. She wrapped her small arms around his legs. Sarah was propped up in bed, her leg in a cast, but she looked worlds better than she had in that wrecked car. "Nick, we've been hoping you'd come." He sat down, suddenly awkward. He'd delivered a report to the authorities, had explained what had happened. But he'd learned about the eviction, the desperation, the estrangement from the official reports. He hadn't known what to say. "How are you both doing?" he asked. "We're okay," Sarah said. "My mother, she came. I called her from the hospital, and she drove through the night. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. She's taking us in. We're going to live with her while I recover, and then—" She took a breath. "We're going to figure things out. Together. As a family." "I'm glad," Nick said. And he was. But his chest still felt tight. Sarah seemed to sense it. "Nick, will you tell Emma the truth? About what happened? She's been asking questions, and I think she deserves to know. And I think it should come from both of us." So they told her. Together, they explained about the eviction, about the car accident, about how scared her mother had been, and how brave Emma had been to walk through the storm. Emma listened with serious eyes. When they finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Mama, you told me it was an adventure, so I wouldn't be scared. That was a good mama thing to do." Sarah broke down crying. Nick felt tears streaming down his own face. This little girl, who had survived so much, was comforting her mother. Emma came to Nick and took his hand. "And you found me. And you found Mama. You saved us." Nick knelt down to her level. "Emma, you saved yourself first. You were the bravest person in this whole story. You walked through a blizzard to save your mama. Do you understand how incredible that is?" Emma considered this. "I was scared," she admitted. "But Mama needed me." And that's when Nick completely fell apart. He'd held it together through the rescue, through the reports, through everything. But this child's simple love, her unwavering courage, her trust in her mother even in the darkest moment, it shattered something in him. He sat on the floor and cried while Emma patted his shoulder. "It's okay," she said. "We're safe now." Sarah was crying too. "Nick, I don't know how to thank you. You gave me back my daughter. You gave us both a second chance." Nick wiped his eyes. "You did that yourselves. I was just in the right place." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You made a choice. You could have just taken Emma and left. You could have followed protocol. But you stayed. You searched. You came back. That wasn't luck. That was who you are." Nick Barnes returned to work the following week. He continued his search and rescue duties, continued guiding hikers through the mountains he loved. But something had changed. He'd always known his work mattered, but Emma and Sarah had reminded him why. 3 months later, he received a letter. It was from Sarah, along with a drawing from Emma. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, a tall one, a medium one, and a small one, all holding hands under a yellow sun. The words, "Thank you for being our hero," were written in a child's careful handwriting. Sarah's letter explained that Emma was doing well in school, that Sarah had found a job in her mother's town, that they were healing as a family. She wrote, "Emma talks about you often. She calls you the man who came through the snow. She says when she grows up, she wants to help people like you did. You didn't just save our lives that night, Nick. You showed my daughter that there are good people in the world, that courage matters, that we don't have to face our storms alone." Nick kept that letter and drawing on his refrigerator. On hard days, when rescues went wrong or when the mountains took more than they gave, he would look at it and remember. He remembered a little girl in a red jacket, stumbling through a blizzard for love. He remembered a mother who made an impossible choice, sending her child into the storm rather than watching her freeze. He remembered the moment he found them both, the moment everything changed. And he remembered that sometimes, on the worst nights, in the most brutal storms, grace appears. Not as a miracle from above, but as a decision made by ordinary people to be extraordinary. To search when it would be easier to stop. To stay when it would be safer to leave. To believe that every life matters, even when the odds say otherwise. Emma and Sarah had their second chance. And Nick had something more precious than any award or recognition. He had the knowledge that on one snowy night, when everything hung in the balance, he had made the choice that mattered. Love had won against the storm. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. True stories of courage, survival, and the human spirit need to be shared. Your subscription ensures we can continue bringing these powerful tales to life. Thank you for reading. And remember, we all have the power to be someone's hero when the storm comes. This story was crafted to honor the countless search and rescue professionals who risk their lives in service to others, and the ordinary people who find extraordinary courage in moments of crisis. While this particular narrative is fictionalized, it's inspired by real rescue operations and the profound connections formed between rescuers and those they save. Every winter, thousands of emergency responders venture into dangerous conditions to bring people home safely. Their work often goes unrecognized, but it changes lives forever.